All right, this is the Import-Export weekly meeting. It is the 30th of July, and I'm joined hopefully by two people, but at the moment it's only one. And we're going to talk through some of the updates. So let me just share my screen so you can see. Right, you should be able to see, this is the import-export specific statistics for pull requests. So we have processed already so far, so far this month 7, which is great. We had a few more, we had one more come in, which has been processed today, I believe, which is nice. So yeah, it's been pretty good so far. For today's meeting, we are gonna talk through a few updates from Ty's testing today, right?
That's right, yeah.
And we are joined by Carsten now, and Carsten, we can talk through. There's one issue in particular that I think you both are kind of not covering, but touching in the same sort of area, so we can talk through that together as a team. And then we can do any updates. First thing from my point of view is there probably won't be a meeting for the next 2 weeks, as I'm in Indonesia next Monday, and then Australia, or flying back from Australia the Monday after that, but I will, I'll keep you updated on that as and when. So why don't we start with your testing feedback to start with?
Okay, so we're zooming in on issue 37.
37, all right, let me find that. Or would it be easier if you shared your screen and then you could... I stop sharing, and then you should be able to share your screen and you can talk through your issue.
Okay. Right. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So 37. So this is an interesting one. So duplicate SKU. Okay, so there's quite a history to this one, but let me just go straight down to some of the tests that I did. So the original issue was linked to the fact with SKUs with trailing spaces. So most of my testing so far has been linked to the trailing spaces side, because there's some interesting results coming back from my SQL on this one. So I did, if we just browse down, so I did about 14 different tests. And what was decided previous to my testing was that, for example, if it finds a duplicate SKU on a save, another entity with the same SKU, it'll append a -1 to the end, or a -2, or whatever that is, whichever one it finds. But we kind of agreed that we were going to stop that. So I believe, Carsten, you were going to look into that side of things.
Yes, yeah, that sounds familiar.
Okay. Well, what I found was there's sort of function, so that, let me just go down here. So there's a function called generate unique SKU, and what that calls is, it actually calls another function check attribute unique value, and that's in the EAV abstract entity class. Now, if we take SKU, for example, it's a static. Now in there, it's running a query to, have I got another SKU of the same value? But the problem we have with trailing spaces is that MySQL strips out trailing spaces when it's using the equal sign operator. So you'll see here in my examining one of my tests where the SKU is equal to DEF. Now that will actually return a record if the SKU was DEF space and DEF, or DEF space space. So that's where the duplicate SKU issue occurs. And there's a sequence you have to go through. And the sequence is, first of all, you'd have to create, so in test 4 here, you create ABC, and then you import another SKU called ABC space. And then you can import, space ABC. So the import works fine. I've had no issues with the import so far. And even in test 7, I deleted ABC and tried to re-import it, and it was fine. But it's when you go into the admin panel and try and edit ABC and change, something else, product name, description, you then try and save it, it will append a -1 to the end of that SKU. So what's kind of happened is it's finding others that it shouldn't. So I believe there's a MySQL issue there linked to trailing spaces. Leading spaces, I don't believe are an issue, but I haven't done too many tests with that one. I was kind of more focused on the trailing spaces and why the duplicate happened. So it kind of overlaps with some of the work that you're probably going to be looking at, Karsten, in that function where it generates the unique SKU, because it calls that function check attribute unique value. Now this is where my knowledge starts to fall a little bit short, is the fact that it's in EAV model entity abstract entity, the fact that you may have to go in there and start changing how it works. I'm not sure about that. The only way I've seen so far about to fix this is to actually test for the length of the string as well. But yeah, I'm not sure how much goes through abstract entity and where you want to start playing around too much in there.
It all sounds pretty ugly, in my opinion.
What's that?
It sounds pretty ugly, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's another issue in there in that there's a trim, and there was a previous comment on that. It shouldn't really be trimming the value to before it does the query, because if we're having leading and trailing spaces, obviously it needs to stay in there. So yeah. The leading spaces is a problem if you trim, but the trailing spaces problem is with the trim and the SQL query. So, but a check with a length would actually work because it's a varchar. For example, if you were changing, it's difficult, this one, to kind of explain properly, but for example, we have a tests 8, 9, and 10. So 8 creates DEF with a trailing space, import 9, DEF, and then 10, you're basically editing DEF and switching it back to DEF. Now, it will accept that change simply because the query at the moment is finding itself. It's finding DEF space because the query has actually stripped out the trailing space. So it's coming back to your function, Karsten, and going, yeah, it's okay. I don't need to increment it, which is wrong. So yeah, that's the.
What do you have any suggestions of what we could do in this case?
Well, this is the only solution I could find right now is to actually test the length. So you'll see down here in 2 where we have where we add a where clause where we're actually testing the length. So we're binding in, so we're passing in as part of the bind the length of the string, and then we're also testing in the where clause that the length of that string is the same. So that would exclude the DEF trailing space SKU from the query, and it would return back the correct duplicate.
Okay.
And it would then return false, and then the function generate unique SKU would be false. So it would go, sorry, I can't do that. And we're obviously going to be replacing generate unique SKU with, well, actually, we're not generating unique SKUs. We're just actually going to tell you it's a problem. And my testing so far, the import hasn't been a problem because the import is slightly easier in that if it finds the existing SKU, it'll just update it because that's what it is. It's an add update. But I want to do a lot more testing with the import with leading spaces and trailing spaces, and import, 5 or 6 of them and then re-import them and make sure they all update. That it doesn't suddenly find other ones.
Yeah.
But I think most of the issues right now are to the admin panel when you edit SKUs.
So I'm just looking at the MySQL documents for characters and operations with characters, and it says that the values of varchar and char columns are stored and compared according to the character set correlation assigned to the column. These are set to pad space, which means values in MySQL are compared without regard for trailing spaces, which is what you found, right?
Yeah.
And it says that per the SQL standard, which I didn't know about, the like performs are matching per character basis. So I wonder if in this case, for at least the checking of the values, we need to actually do a like rather than an equals. Because that will do with spaces, a comparison with all spaces left in.
Yeah, it would just be an issue done though if lots of SKUs have similar values. I don't know where you draw the line with the like.
Well, the like one, it seems in this case you would do, you can do like, but without any percent, so it will do matching just that string.
Right, yeah, I see what you mean.
And then it would leave the trailing space in for the comparison. So that might be an option for updating, what is it, check attribute unique value, I guess is where the test is being made, right?
Yes, that's it, yeah. Now, but it's quite...
Or you could bind the length, right? I suppose, is what you were saying before, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't be sure which one. Well, we'd have to try them out. Okay. But the thing is that is this only relevant for SKU? That class itself. Like we're in abstract entity here, which is quite.
That'll compare everything, or be used at least in most EAVs. I guess won't change that. Maybe the option, anything with an option will probably change that. But other than that, I think it won't.
Well, that's it. What else goes through that function, and do other situations require the trim? That's why I put down the bottom. Is it time that the SKU has its own special function here?
That might be a good idea. What I can do is I can raise this with we have a core architect assigned to the project, so I can ask for his feedback on this. It might be that we go for the like option. It might be we go for the where and the length, or it might be like you suggest, like the other option of adding SKU specific checker, and then doing something that works with the SKU in that case. But if you're doing an exact match and the value in MySQL is stored as some form of character, then it looks like we might need to do the like. But I can check with him on that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just make a note of that. And which issue? 37.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But so far, I didn't have issues with the actual import itself, because the import doesn't really go down that path.
Yeah, it's done differently, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's a very unique situation to actually recreate the duplicate, because
Yeah, but were you able to get it?
You have to import one of them first.
Okay. Import one and then add the other via the admin section.
Yeah, so 8, 9, 10 kind of prove how that works. So what I tried to do is I took everybody's kind of feedback from before and tried to just do a bit more simplistic test.
No, that's good.
Took time, but
okay.
Yeah, I think it'll. I think the SKU is becoming quite a special type, so it might need to be. I don't know where it would sit in the class structure in terms of EAV entity stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, I'll get some feedback on this. Is there more test case you would like to look through, or should I go?
Well, I said my next up, there's a few more test cases I want to try. I want to do a little bit more around the leading spaces.
Okay.
But they're less of an issue, especially with MySQL. So I think we'll be okay there. And it was, but if Carson's looking into the generate unique SKU, we're probably going to rename that function to generate unique SKU.
Yeah, I think we can remove that one in this case. There's a pull request that's already kind of half done, which removes generate unique SKU, and the only thing, or the next part of it, would be to allow admin duplication, which I believe was what Carsten was looking at.
I don't like the whole thing somehow. The whole that you are allowed to have white spaces in the SKU at all. That pisses me off quite a lot.
There are some. Well, as trailing or leading spaces. Yeah, I'm not too sure if that makes sense or not.
It's a nightmare to try and manage. You just don't see them.
Yeah, and I think in our Magento 1 that we are running as a company, I think it's not possible to have trailing or leading white spaces.
Does it trim before save?
I think,
okay.
And I think it's, I don't know, and I don't think that we programmed it. And then we had, for example, the issue that we wanted to import certain SKUs, and they had a line break at the end, so the import wouldn't find them, and that was so horrible. And I have no idea how they managed to do a line break at the end of the SKU.
Yeah. It is it's almost impossible to try and design an import sheet. But for configurables as well, you've got to make sure you've got the spaces before and after. I'm just following decisions made by the Magento folks.
Yeah, they want to allow that, or that's important.
Whether you could possibly have a some kind of a configuration setting for that, maybe in the long run, to whether you can make that decision whether you allow them.
I see what you mean. Yeah, that might be a nice option to do later.
Because I think 95% of people would be horrified if they knew they could have them.
Yeah. But right now, the official decision is that they want to allow white spaces.
It's not so much that we want to allow white spaces, but what I would like to get rid of is this generating the unique SKU.
Yeah, okay.
If a SKU comes in from a product system, where we shouldn't edit that. So either we have to throw an exception or throw an error saying you've got trailing white spaces, or we have to just say we're going to check exactly the SKU you give us. In that case, and not trim it, essentially.
Yeah, and when you showed the tests, you were showing that you had an SKU with a white space, and then you imported it without white space, and then you wrote all fine. In my opinion, that's not all fine. If it works to import it without a white space that doesn't exist or does exist in the original SKU.
As a front-end user and an admin user, you would not be able to see the difference between one space at the end and not.
That's it.
It's horrible. It's just horrible.
So right now, because I think it triggers there's an event for the SKU, like a before save or something, to generate unique SKU.
Yeah.
So that we must be changing that to check unique SKU or something.
Yeah.
Because we still need to run the query to check that there's no others out there.
Yeah.
And then if there is, just return an error instead.
Let me share my screen and I can show you what is currently in place that Carsten was. Oh, Carsten, do you have any feedback on investigation, or shall I go from?
No news.
Okay.
I didn't have time to do anything.
That's fine. So if if you can stop sharing, and then I can.
Okay. Sorry. What do I do? Stop share. Okay. Cool.
Then I can share. So you can see my screen at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the pull request that came in from Federico a while ago, and it went through review and testing and everything. The only issue we found was if you're in the admin section, you couldn't duplicate the product. So this is what, because it failed because the SKU is not unique. So this is what Carsten is looking at the moment, is seeing how we can get it working with duplicate. So what we're in is the SKU, the backend SKU. I believe it's in the validate method of that, which I think is called on the before save, like you were saying.
Yeah, it's down a bit further, I think. Yeah,
it's after this one, right? So here we go. So what we're doing is getting rid of the usage of the generate SKU, but in the validation, adding this check, or keeping the check attribute unique value in place. So that's from this side, and also removing the appending of the value to the SKU.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was looking. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the plan here. Is if we can get this working with the duplication, then I think this is a good way of doing it, because we shouldn't be manipulating. In my opinion, we shouldn't be manipulating the SKUs.
No, I think it's a bad idea.
We should either error and tell the user you can't have X, Y, or Z characters in your white space and return, or we should be doing it like this, which is just saying, what's the check? The check for a valid SKU is that it's actually got a length to it, so it's not empty. It's not bigger than the maximum length, and in this case, it's not already in use. And in that case, we could add in more validation later, saying no return characters, no trailing white spaces, so we can build on that, as you were suggesting. But in this way, we would bring the backend save in line with the import save as well, which I think is important, so as we don't confuse, users, because I think part of the issue was, like you found out, if you import, it does one thing. If you save via the admin section, it does another. So trying to make them as consistent as possible is what we're aiming for here.
Yeah, I've one question in the area that I'm not so hot on is API. So what happens if? So I assume you can generate products via the API and stuff. What happens if the SKU comes in? Will it return the same kind of error in that instance there?
You mean if you try and save
save a product through via the API?
Oh, that is a good question, actually. I will check with Eugene about that. He, at the moment, is running the API project to do with the bulk API. So I will double check with Eugene. API, because again, that should work in the same way, in my opinion. We should have all three working in the same manner so that we don't confuse people.
Yeah. Well, I assume it just returns a similar error. It's just like if you had too many characters or whatever.
Yeah, I would guess that the API would work in the same way as the import does at the moment. Whereas if it finds the SKU, it ends up doing an update. But I'm not 100% sure on that, and I will check. All right. Is there any other questions or updates?
From my side, I think we were just talking about. Let me just go into. Should I take over for a second?
Yeah, you can take over. Is it 37, or was that the one we just looked at?
37 is the one we looked at. I think the other one that I kind of parked it because of this SKU happiness is what I call this project. Import export option. So this one was when options contain commas or pipes or equal signs, what happens? And basically you get an error. So it was to be able to, for the import to be able to accept these values. Now, initially I went down the wrong road. I thought it was to do with configurable variations, but it's not. It's actually to do with custom options. So it's quite feasible. You could have a custom option that, it contains a sentence with a comma in it. Like, would you like to engrave this product, comma, something, something, something. Now that doesn't work. It will strip out after the first comma. So that's why I've put at the end, it's in my next task to look at that. We've kind of we've done it in some areas of the import where it kind of picks up on commas and stuff, but the custom options doesn't at the moment. So that if we get past the SKU one, yeah, I might come back and look at that.
Okay, sure.
That's it for me, really.
All right. Anything from your side, Carsten? Or
my pull request was merged. Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, thanks.
You can officially wear. Have you got your contribution T-shirt?
I got a T-shirt. Yeah.
Okay, you can wear it then.
I even got it before the pull request.
Oh yeah, I gave it in good.
I got mine on the contribution day, and
yeah, me too.
I said I wasn't going to wear it until I had something merged. So,
yeah, you both got the same deal on that one, so
I can wear it with pride now.
Cool. All right. So if that is the updates, then I guess there's no point having much longer of a meeting. Like I said, the next 2 weeks I'm traveling, so I don't think we will have meetings, but if there is anything, drop me a message in Slack or an email or however best you feel, and I will be working. I'll just be in a different time zone, so it might make communication a little delayed. So feel free to just drop me a message and I'll get around to it when I have a moment.
Just to finish up, so are we going to leave it with you now regarding the query? Whether we switch to a like or a length or whatever. Are you going to go back to the product architect on that one?
Yes, I will check with him on that.
Okay, I'll just do a few other little tests that I'd planned to do. But in terms of where the actual fix goes, because it's quite unique to Skew, you might not want to be changing abstract entity, just for Skew and then knock out everything else. So, but yeah, I'm sure your architect guy can answer that. But at least you know where the issue is.
Yeah, that's great. I will. I'll loop you in on that email as well, so you get an answer from him even if I'm away,
Cool.
so that you're not waiting around.
Yeah, I'll be eagerly checking every half an hour.
Cool. All right. Thank you, guys.
All the best.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.